Okay, cool stuff. So welcome to the free styling webinar where I'll share with you guys 5 design mistakes to avoid. So many times I think, during the usual weekly Q&A, I often see quite a number of people sending in photos about their house or even their spaces. And I always kind of see what has gone wrong. And then hopefully, today with the top 5 that I usually spot, I hope you guys can kind of maybe do some quick changes for your home space, maybe just learn something new as well. So I'll start off first with a bit of an intro about sort of who I am, if those of you who are new to me and who has just joined me into following my Instagram page. And then I'll also share a little bit of a difference between what an interior designer is versus a stylist. And then I'll share the 5 design mistakes before I'll go into the Q&A. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, cool. So if you guys can kind of just let me know why you guys are here. Is it because you want to design a home from scratch, or maybe some past students, you feel like maybe some parts you're not so sure and you have some more questions, you can also ask me as well. And then the other reason it could be maybe you just want to add some new vibe into your home space. So I hope that today with some of the tips, it would really help you to add some personality. I think the very first design mistake would be a good one for you guys to add personality in your house. And then the very last bit would be to avoid shopping mistakes. And this would be one design mistake that I feel that in number 5 that I think would be quite useful if you're thinking about buying something sort of like your major furniture sets and stuff. Okay. Cool. Now I'll go on next to my design journey. So basically, I started off in the arty farty field. Basically, I've always been inspired by art, and I've been learning art since I was 5. And I think it really, one day I think I started doodling in terms of like all the papers in my house, and I felt that like one day my dad said, Pris, I think it's too much. You should stop drawing because there's no more paper. And then she said, since you're doodling a lot of all these little girls and stuff, why not you actually focus and try to translate that into fashion? And so for the first time I heard, oh, what is fashion all about? And so my dad was pretty cool. He enrolled me to like dressmaking classes and fashion design drawing classes. And that was really when I realized, wow, my excitement and my passion is in fashion design. So I was a fashion designer for about 10 years. And then after that I did my own label and all that. Before I went on to do jewelry design, where I designed bespoke engagement rings and also jade pieces. And that was also a really cool point where I started to learn how to do procurement and sourcing. And I think that really opened my mindset about sort of like, when you're creative, when you have this skill to kind of design, you can actually use it in different fields. And then moving forward after that, I moved to my own home. And from there, I managed to get a few friends and family who were interested in kind of what I do. And that was how I started my interior design journey. And to those of you who are new, I don't know if you realize, but I'm actually based in New Zealand now. So I'm a Singaporean, and I was in Singapore, and I moved to New Zealand about 2.5 years ago. So with the whole COVID situation, I actually started to do a lot of Zoom virtual consultations where we design a home from scratch, just through Zoom calls, which is basically quite a crazy journey. But with COVID, it kind of really opened the eyes of sort of me just being able to kind of speak to people from around the world. So with that, I was able to kind of work on homes, not only in Singapore, where I come from, but also in New Zealand, also same thing as well in the US, Sydney, and even in Brunei. So I'm really been very grateful that this whole online thing can actually really help reach out to more people. And so during that period where COVID happened, I thought, since every single week I was giving out sort of free advice in terms of how you can design and better your home space, I then thought, since there were so many questions and, there's a certain limit to how much I can share on Instagram. And so I decided to create this online course where I basically wanted to just kind of give you guys all of my information and all my tips on how I can design a space. And for some people who have joined the course, I hope you guys found that quite fun, and also you guys have learned something. And so today, let's just go down into how we can learn all about the mistakes. So the other thing that I realize a lot of people are not very clear of is also about whether, sorry, is it blocking the screen? Yeah, it's whether or not, like, what's the difference between an interior designer versus an interior stylist. So usually for me now, I carry both hats, to be honest. A lot of times when I design a home space, I would have to actually design it for everybody, and then like even starting from the home space, like in terms of choosing the tiles and all that. So for interior designer, we usually focus more on how you can play around the floor plan layout, and then we do full renovation works from tiling, plumbing, carpentry design, and a lot of the 3D drawings that will help sort of come to the vision to the end where the whole look is put together. Versus if interior stylist, actually this is the part where we actually come in to help you with your existing home, where, so this is a clear example in the two photos here. The one on the left shows me kind of finishing and doing the design from carpentry to also styling and making sure that we even choose the window treatments and all that just for the house, including the floor. Versus the picture on the right, that is a house that was actually already there. My client just really wanted some extra stuff. So the things that I added for her was the new extra bar table, where we gave her a little bit more sitting space by this island that she initially had, but she has no sitting zone. And then we also added in some ambience lighting in the lights at the island zone. And she also had like no open shelf previously. And so she was someone who really wished to kind of display like some of her dinnerware pieces also in that zone. And we kind of help her put that all into the place, including adding in the window treatments as well. So this is where really, like, as an interior stylist, you really kind of come in to help with more of a color sense, and also in terms of choosing the right furniture and the details that would be suitable for a existing space. And so a few times, like if you're intending to spruce out a house, maybe you can also look at your existing pieces and then see how you could maybe either put them in a separate room because it's maybe not working in this space because you want to revamp to a new sofa, or maybe you can even think about changing the color completely with a new upholstery, and then that could also change the vibe drastically. So the next one that I'll share now is, sorry, I don't know why. Okay, cool. The next one is, I wanted you guys to imagine whether your home could be a place where you feel comfortable and cozy, a home that you could tell your own story, and a home that can fit your needs. So a lot of times, I feel like a lot of people go into, like, you know, a new home and think that, okay, you know, as long as I just buy some key furnitures, it should look good already. But sometimes if you actually have bought that and you realize there's some missing components, it's because maybe other supporting things are not in there. And today I will share a few insights about what are some of the missing things that can really kind of help you shape the house and also make you feel a little bit more comfortable in that space as well. So here are the 5 design mistakes I noticed quite a bit. Okay, the very first one is lonely furniture placement. I don't know about whether what you guys think, but basically many times I go to someone's house, or maybe I see from a photo, I always see that there is a piece of corner where there is like maybe an armchair, or maybe say it's at your entryway where you have a little bench, you know, where you sit to wear your shoes before you go out. And that zone always feels quite sad. So this person is always quite lonely. And so many times if you're having a furniture, you know, and you just only buy that one piece, but you don't give it a buddy, it really ends up being quite bare. And it just feels like there's some kind of weird negative space around it. So if you can see, the picture on the right shows just a very lonely armchair, which has kind of like been misplaced and you're not quite sure where it is, versus on the left photo, you can see how this particular armchair has sort of more of an interesting zone. Like your eyes will be drawn to that because there are different elements to explore in that space. The very first one is it could be a place where you can just sit and just kind of drink a cup of tea with the side table. Or it could be also a place where you want to read a book, so the stand lamp is in that place. It could also be a little place where maybe you want to take a photo or have a little Zoom call when you're, having a meeting, and that little plant and the artwork can kind of add in that extra element of detail. And so I feel like in many times when you're thinking about just sort of buying one furniture, think about whether it needs a buddy. And so here are some ways where you can add a buddy to your very lonely furniture. So the very first one on the left would be, you could do a stand lamp, a side table, and art. And if you can see that photo, we actually use mirrors at art. It doesn't necessarily need to be an art frame. It can also be something more 3D. And as you can tell, you can put a book there. You can even do a little cushion. You can even use that little corner to play your guitar. So you can see how these three components have added up to make this little corner a bit more fun and exciting. The second picture shows a bench, which is at the main door. It is a place that I feel a lot of people don't really care so much about. So this is a place where I feel, you actually move around quite quickly and you want to get out of the house quite fast. So what we have done here is we've added in some cushions, so then the bench doesn't look like it's just on a very low level. The cushion helps to look like it's a bit higher. And same thing as well with the mirror on top. It's also a functional thing because you get to see yourself, your makeup or your hair or whatever. If you want to see your whole body, you could do a full-length mirror there as well. This would be a very cool place to do that. And the plant is actually a very cool way to actually draw your eyes up. So if imagine in this photo, I didn't have that plant that is quite tall, you can see how the bench is quite lonely at the bottom, and then the top is just a wood detail. So this is a part where the tree, in the sense, helps you to kind of draw your eyes up to the mirror, creating some kind of connecting line. And then on the right-hand side is where basically you've got the little armchair. And then at the same time, this is where, you can also do your reading, and you can do a bookshelf right beside it together with a stand lamp. And many times also with stand lamps, if you notice, I mentioned it many times in my Instagram as well, a lot of times in a floor plan, everything is very boxy and rectangular. So if you can introduce some curved lines into the space, it really drastically adds a softness and a bit more of a curvier, more gentle feeling to your house as well. So you can see how the wreath on the top and also even the design of the stand lamp on your right has sort of these curvy lines to kind of draw the details in, even though the armchair and even the bookshelf is of angular and a bit more of a boxy shape. Cool. So that's basically design mistake one. The second design mistake that I realize a lot of people do is that they would hang their curtain right where the window is. And this is a part where you can do that. I wouldn't say it's all wrong, but if you've already done that, maybe say in a new house, then it's fine. But if you are kind of wanting to revamp your house, or you have a brand new house that you are thinking, wow, my ceiling is quite low, like maybe at about 2.4 to 2.6. Is there a way for me to make it feel as though it's much higher? This drastic difference where you actually hang your curtains right to the very top part of your ceiling would drastically increase the sense of the space. It just gives you the illusion that it's much, much higher. And when we did this little trim at the ribbon corner at the bottom, this is also a really powerful way to create the illusion that as though the proportion at the bottom is quite low and then the top part is really high. And this is also another trick sometimes when you're playing with trims and details or even half wall tones in curtains, you can then also create illusion of space. It's a bit similar to how, like, example, if you are a lady or a man and you're wearing like an outfit, if you wore everything kind of like black or maybe just even one color, like a nice chic white pantsuit, you look much taller versus, you suddenly wear like a bright orange like top and then you wear like another bottom that is quite blue, at the bottom, there's a cut in line and that makes things a little bit stumpier and shorter. So this is one tip. So if you can see from this illustration here, basically most people would like to hang their curtains in this area. The reason why I also think a lot of people go for that is because it is a bit cheaper. Because number one, I think you would use lesser fabric, so it's cheaper. But if you can, and if you are fast enough to tell your installer, you should tell them to install it at the highest point. But there's one other tip to take note of, and it is to make sure that you always knock and see whether or not they can either hang it either from the ceiling, mounted on the ceiling top, or at the side of the wall. And you need to make sure that it is a good solid one, because sometimes if your window space is quite long and wide, you are also the rod might be too sort of like it might not be too stable. So you might need to do some internal support. Same thing as well, whenever you're designing a curtain space, you also want to think about whether you have a day or a night curtain, and whether you need to leave the allowance in terms of the gap if you're doing any pelmet design. And I wanted to show you on the right-hand picture that it is so important that you also need to make sure that the blinds are also hung at the very highest point. If you can see, the windows actually stop kind of here where I've highlighted. So if you actually did them all the way up, it just makes it feel as though this ceiling space is actually maybe 2.8 versus actually in reality is only 2.6. So this powerful illusion drastically makes a huge difference. And can you see again, this vertical lines in terms of the blinds also makes a huge difference by making it look, when we did it vertical lines versus horizontal, it also makes the window area look like it's much taller. Now, the other one that I feel is the number one mistake, which is super important, which I feel a lot of people, have a problem with, is I realize most people like to hang their artwork behind their sofa or even at their bed or whatever so high that I would have to look up. So anytime if you have an artwork that is like behind you or even where the sofa is or a console is, you really want to make sure that you hang it at eye level. The reason being is that it is proportionate to the space, and regardless whether or not your ceiling is super high at maybe say 4 meters or even 5 meters, you would still do it at the same way. So even if you were to walk up the stairs and if you want to do some art pieces along the stairs, you also want to frame them around at eye level as well. This is kind of like a magic rule. Anytime if you put it too low, it also feels like you've shortened the space, but I realize most people hang it too high up, and this is a very clear illustration to show you how. I think most people are quite scared, and I'm guessing why people do the artwork very high up where their sofa is because they are very scared that their head will hit it. But in reality, actually, if you have got a very nice sofa with a good backing, and I also feel like sometimes some people trick themselves. They actually use a cushion and put it up for even higher headrest. It really shouldn't hit, and it's okay even if you hit it. It just feels more proportionate to the space. So this is an example on the right hand side. Can you see how usually when we do a half wall paint, it's at about 1.2 meters high? And so this level where the artwork is really at eye level, and that really helps you to kind of tie everything together, and it looks like it's a nice composition because if you are someone who actually has got an artwork really high, and I guess if you ever take a picture of yourself in front of it, you'll realize that your face, like you'll just get this frame cut behind you on the very top, and again it just doesn't feel really beautiful. So that will be something that I would really stress that you try to work on and change if you can, because this is an instant way to make it look way more balanced in a room and just way more beautiful. The other one, which is in design 4, is having the design mistake 4 is to actually have only one light source. So in a home environment space, I don't know if anybody care, or even when you're planning for your floor plan, is that do you see on the bottom photo that everything is just the lights, the lights are just everything on the ceiling, and it's only just one level. So basically it's shining on your head and it's just like making it glow, but there's no other layers of lights in the house. And I tell you that it is one most instant way and the cheapest way to also bring in some decorative items and some personality in your house. So this photo on the left, if you can see, is also an example that if you have a mirror, mirrors are also considered sort of like a reflective material. And sometimes you can also use that to reflect a space in a house to make it a bit more spacious. And at the same time, it also is a very good place where you can look at yourself before you leave the house. So here are the different layers of lights that you can consider. The very first one was the mirror that I mentioned to you guys here. So can you see how, again, this TV console has got some elements of different heights going on? And this is a really fun trick here, where if you place something quite high here on the left side, and you also have something that's a bit lower here, and a one that's something higher, like a clock in this zone, this entire composition makes it a bit more interesting. And you don't just look at the wall and see the TV. You actually got many different layers to look at. And then at the same time, the different ways of how lighting can enhance a space is through a table lamp. So if you have a sideboard, or maybe say a console table, or even a little low shelf where you put your books, like an example here, a table lamp is a really nice, good ambience to kind of create in that space. And you can see how I've also introduced some kind of curves into that line. The next one would be hanging pendant lights. It is really crucial to actually put pendant lights by the dining table. I'm not a big fan of putting a fan above the dining table, because I don't understand why people want to cool the food down so quickly. So a dining light would be a really powerful way to add a bit more ambience. And this is also another one that I've seen from a lot of like Q&As, where everybody hangs their lights so high up that, again, I have to look up, and it's just not proportionate to this zone. So because the dining table is much higher, you can actually bring your light slightly lower down, and at the same time, you are never going to walk over your dining table. So it is actually a very safe space for you to actually lower your lights and create the ambience that you require. And the other one is also a stand lamp right beside your sofa, or also at your TV console. If sometimes you just want to switch off all the general lighting on the top, you can actually just have that. So can you see how these three different components of light create this really beautiful warmth in that space? So maybe you're someone who really prefers a space that has a lot of white lighting, because you want it to be functional. But sometimes if you just want to unwind, listen to a music, or just to really relax, maybe the warm lighting would really help you guys. And this is where all these components come in to kind of enhance the space. The other design mistake, which is the very last one, is matching everything to a T. So another thing that I noticed through the Q&A is I've seen quite a number of living room spaces where the furniture sets, be it in the living room or the dining space, are all almost the same in terms of design style, or even the same fabric. That can feel a bit like a cookie cutter look, or a bit like what you can buy completely from the store, and that can end up looking a little bit boring. So the key word here is that whenever you're shopping for your furniture, you really want to make sure that you actually do not match the furniture, but you try to coordinate them. So the word is coordinate your furniture pieces so that they have a bit more personality, and they just feel a little bit more like stylish, where like as though you got someone professional to do it for you. So can you see here on the left photo, notice how the different combination of the furniture are not the same in terms of color, but there is a similar theme that ties them together, and that is this warm color that we're using, which is this brown tone that's going on. So the brown beigey tone, taupe color that's in the sofa, it's kind of being replicated in the side corner of this, and the gray is then being reflected into the ottomans here, like the little post, and the wooden trim is being reflected again in the art frame and also in the tan leather look. So this is how you can kind of bring everything that is different together, but still feel like there's a bit more, interest. So the idea really in decorating is you don't want everything too matchy-matchy. You want to have some kind of friction so that things looks a bit more exciting. So here are some very simple ways of how you can do to not go so matchy-matchy. If you truly want to do a matching armchair, you can, which is an example here on the left, and also these ones here. But then you would want to always make sure that in a grouping of a 2 set or a pair, you want to make sure you break it up with something like a side table so that it doesn't look so together. Also, even if you do things in the groupings of the pair, maybe you can consider them in slightly different height and also slightly different, size. And the other thing is this particular living room space, this particular sofa on the left is actually their existing sofa. We just got it reupholstered. And then the other stuff we bought new from all different shops. So you can see how the black detail and the stripe is being repeated as well in the light and also in the trims or even in the frames. See how these things are how it can help to coordinate and help the look together. Same thing as well with the woody element. Same thing as well with the rattan finish that's happening in the space. Then the other thing that is also important is to introduce some curvy lines to draw your attention into the space. It's kind of like it's that focal thing that draws everybody into this conversational piece. And so I would really encourage you to maybe consider curvy lines, not only in just the ottoman or the coffee table, but you can also see these curvy lines in the sofas that you buy, or even in the side tables, or even in the armrests that you have as well. So this is a really powerful way to kind of soften the space when everything is quite boxy, as you can see in the room. And the other very important thing, which I shared earlier in the lighting one, is that it's important to also add height in the room. Notice that, again, if all this furniture was here, but I didn't introduce in this stand lamp, can you see this plant here? The whole room would feel very low, and it would just feel like it's a very flat surface, and it wouldn't feel like there's that much things going on. But the moment when you introduce some stuff that is a little bit higher, you actually draw your eyes up to see the curtains, you see the art, your eyes is able to bounce into different corners of the space, a bit like how you view a valley zone. So same thing as well, art pieces, lights, and also the same time plants help you to play around with this, bouncing of your eye when you're seeing a space, rather than if everything is just low. This is the biggest mistake that I feel a lot of people have in a home space, where everything they find is just bulky and boxy and it's all flat on the floor. That really creates an illusion that, your ceiling is very low, and it doesn't draw your eyes up to kind of create that illusion that the room is very airy. Cool stuff. So I've come to the end of the design mistakes. Here I have a little Q&A where basically you guys can ask me any questions you like. Do you guys have any questions that I can help you answer? Anyone? I hope that was helpful, the design mistakes. Does anybody have any feedback? Don't know whether you guys want to reply me. Cool. Any questions for Q&A that you guys have that you want to check in with me? Oh, cool, Cassie. Thank you. I appreciate you liking the session. And great, cool. Do you guys have any, oh, cool, okay. So let's answer some questions now. So Rachel asked me, what's your thoughts on design prints on sofa? Oh my God, I love that idea. I think that if you are interested to kind of, maybe I'll stop share and then I'll show my face so that you guys can see, okay, cool. So, okay, sorry, again, Rachel, your question was, what's your thoughts on design prints on sofa? I think you can do that. If you're a little bit worried and scared, maybe you can do the design print on an armchair, or you could do a design print on an ottoman. That would be a very safe way to introduce prints into the picture. And if you truly want to go a bit crazy and a bit more adventurous with a sofa that has prints, maybe you can go for the classic ones, like maybe stripes or even florals. If you want something a bit more crazy and fun, that would be something that is quite easy to execute. So I hope that helps. But anytime whenever you have print, try to always have something that's a bit more neutral so that it don't end up, like the whole room is just like a flower shop. You always want to have that bit of balance. Then Valerie asked questions on small apartment design mistakes. So in my course, actually, I have a little segment all about small apartments and how you can plan a space. But the very big mistake I feel in a small apartment where people don't always make a mistake on is actually they buy very tiny furniture. So actually, the reality is that in a small space, if you are smart about, planning your space well, you can actually incorporate furniture that has dual function. So maybe say a sofa that maybe on the side you can actually pull out to have a little bit of a side table, rather than like if you have too much furniture, then you feel like it's too cluttered. So I feel that a lot of people, when you're designing a small space, you actually, how would I say, you don't really think about sort of like the maximization of space. So like, this particular setting behind me right now is actually a day bed. And so when I am kind of not having any guests, I use it as sort of like a little sofa to chill out. But then when I have guests over, it doubles up as like a double bed, which is like a queen bed for my parents if they want to come over and stay. So it's all about being creative in a small apartment space. And the other thing is also for small apartment space, I find that many times people like to do a lot of things low and against the wall. So if your space is quite small, you want to think about using your wall space and try to put some stuff higher up, so then your illusion of the room is also widened rather than everything just sitting in that boxy little zone. So Pauline asked a question about foyer space. To be honest, whenever I think about a foyer space, I will maybe just kind of think about more of functionality, and also at the same time, I would think about what are some key furnitures that I need in there before I plan. But that would be the main thing. I would write down what is my storage requirement first, and then I would find the relevant furnitures to complement that. That is always how I work when it comes to design. Cool. And so Wendy, thank you so much for your very kind words. Okay, next one. Yanling asked a question. So in a brand new house, which part of the house should we design first? Good question. I'm not so sure if you're talking from a design perspective, like interior design perspective, or more styling perspective, but we always never choose to do and find the paint first. I always choose my main things first, like maybe my flooring first, my bigger items first, like my towels first. I'll find all my big furniture first, my textile first, before I actually settle with paint finish. I find a lot of people think that, oh, just because I have a new house, I need to find paint, but no, you don't need to. And again, anytime whenever I'm designing a new space, I would ask myself a lot of questions about how I envision my house, my space, myself in that space, and what are some of the things that I enjoy, and some things that I enjoy, and what kind of furniture would support my habits and my, my liking and my needs. Diona asked a question. What about wallpapering a part of the room for texture or mood? This is a very instant way to dress up a house, and you can do that quite easily. Again, you do not need to wallpaper all rooms. If you just do one wall, it's actually the most cost-effective one. So Fionn asked a good questions about cushion designs and pairings. So in my course, I share a lot of tips about all the different cushion sizes, and also like the sizing to buy, how you compare colors and everything. So that one, I will get you guys to kind of look at that. So a clear example here is also just to play around with things that is in the room. So again, the buddy system is a very big one that I share a lot in my course about how things in the whole space need to speak to one another. Kim would ask a question about how do you choose art to complement your sofa? I would choose it based on my preference first. I would think more about what my home style is and also what my liking is. I would never choose an art to complement my sofa, because to be honest, I think a sofa is a very neutral ground. So I don't see why you need to choose an art to complement your sofa. You should choose an art that speaks to you, speaks to the home style that you are actually keen on. Deborah asks, how do you suggest styling Japandi theme? I think this one, it's quite simple actually. It's all about less is more. And again, quite a lot of woody materials and simple plain colors. So I think you would need to do a bit of restraint in terms of designing and planning the space. I think using a lot of negative spaces would help. Okay, I need to check if okay. So maybe I have another 10 more minutes to kind of help you guys answer some more questions, and then we will end the session. Wow, so many questions. Okay. Mel asks, how can we add some colors to a neutral palette? This is a very good question. I love it. You do not necessarily need to add colors. You just sometimes need to add textures. Textures can also be a form of color because it has movement. Melissa asks, how do we get a house to look bigger? And that should we use lighter colors and neutral tones? I mean, generally a lighter house always feel brighter, but that's not the case. I think you can always use different tricks that I taught you through lighting, mirrors, even how you plan the space also makes a huge difference. Diona asks about rug placement. We are doing a live Sunday chat with Loom and Stone in the course, so that one we will talk all about that. Tati asks, would you be doing wainscoting on walls to reduce flexibility on changing design? To be honest, I think wainscoting is not a cheap thing to do unless you DIY it yourself, unless you're very clear on your design vision that this is kind of the European, luxurious modern home vibe that you prefer, then go for it because it can be really neutral, but some people don't like it. Some people like it. It's a very strong personal preference. But one trick about wainscoting is instead of doing it full wall, you could consider doing it half wall. And Serene asks, if there is a white long wall across the living room and the dining area, how will you design the space or wall art? I would think of them based on zones, and I would design it based on the furniture pieces that is there. And so in the course, there are a lot about empty wall space as well. Li Fang said, oh, you're so sweet. One of the person who never asked question. So Lifa, thank you so much for your kind words. I really appreciate your kindness. Missy asks, what's your advice on wall mural with large prints? Wow, that sounds really beautiful. I think you should definitely go for it if you have a wall that you want to shine. I think wall murals, which is painted once, might be better than wallpaper. I don't know. I feel like it might last longer than a full wall that is so high and you do wallpaper because it does peel versus maybe if someone painted it, it's a bit more lasting. Jacob say, how do I go about choosing types of curtains? I have a bit of an issue deciding translucent ones versus opaque. Again, it goes back to lifestyle and like how much sunlight you need in that space, whether you're sensitive to light, how much blackout you want. And then again, like I said, you would also choose these kind of fabric materials first, then you choose paint. So in my course, I do share a lot. Is this whole video all about it? Jamie asks, I have a bare white wall at the dining area. I've been thinking of whether to put wallpaper or paint a bold color. My vibe is more light hues with wooden furniture. To be honest, if you actually want a stronger impact and you want a bit more texture and a bit more pattern, because maybe you don't have much artwork, then I would do wallpaper. But if I'm someone who is a bit more neutral in terms of my style, then I might do just like a paint. The paint is obviously cheaper, so it really depends on you. But yeah, that would be how I would decide. Pauline asks, how do you recommend to use the same tone of wood tiles throughout the house except the toilet? Shouldn't be a problem. I think that sounds beautiful. Mel asks, how do you, so the rugs one, I think I will leave to the Sunday live chats where Loom and Stone is in to chat with us. Alina is also saying, is there a rule of thumb of how much negative space to prevent a space from looking too cluttered? Very good question. So the rule of thumb is that basically you need to make sure that you have enough walking space around the furniture placement that you are in, so that you don't bump into things. Or also at the same time, if you have a furniture at the side that requires drawers or cabinet, you want to make sure there's enough clearance space as well. So that will be kind of how I would determine my negative space around the furniture placement. And then Gwen asks, how do I style or pair my Scantic 3-seater sofa? It's very old school and retro looking. To be honest, I don't think they are that old school. They are just really timeless looking and very instantly remember the very first one that I shared with you. As long as you introduce in some tropical plants and some very modern cushions, that can really transform the space. And remember, the last design mistake I make is that maybe instead of like a matching set of furniture, you could maybe just break it up and say like maybe the 3-seater sofa, I could pair it with a more contemporary armchair. That could drastically change the vibe totally. And Xia Yuan asks, any tips for styling a kitchen? I would care more about whether there's enough countertop space to have a bit of a styling zone. But again, I would think of them in zones. So if you can see from a lot of Pinterest photo in kitchen, you could maybe create little styling vignettes in the corners. And if you do have open shelves, you can do shelfie with dinnerwares as well. Serene, thank you so much. Melissa, thank you so much for that. Oh my God, hi Kit. And then don't worry, for those of you who missed this, I would be reposting this. So don't worry, you can kind of look back through. Angel asked a question, can I check? We need to consider storage space. So should we need to consider requests so we won't end up. Yes, I think storage space is a very important one, where a lot of people think that just because they have moved into a new house that they have got brand new and very big storage, but in reality that's not the case. So many times if you have a new home or even an existing one, you really want to think and write down what are some of your key storage stuff. So I'm actually quite excited to talk to Esther, where she's the KOMERU like, you know, she does a lot of tidying stuff, and I think she would be able to kind of give me more insights about that as well. So if you're interested, you can join. I think I will answer the last 5 more questions, and then I will end the session. So Jasmine said, I have a very tall double height window and I want to put blinds. Would it look weird if I use one set of blinds for the top one and then, oh my God, yes. I would totally think that would be weird. So if you truly have very high ceiling, one very quick solution is I do think you might want to consider a motorized curtain treatment. It's not too expensive nowadays. Add in an electrical point there and then do a very beautiful long curtain. That is going to just make it look super luxurious. Yeah. And since you have the luxury of having a beautiful double height window, I would totally want to enhance it and make it a feature rather than cut it into half. So maybe you can consider that. Next one would be WY said, do you have any advice on how to make white rather than warm lighting appear less harsh? Yes, you can. So a very easy way was basically if you have lights that are above, which is white light, you can always enhance it with like lights, which is like the layered light. So table lamps, stand lamps in warm lighting. And if you kind of light everything else, everything together in the room, it actually creates some kind of balance in the space. Or the other alternative is that if you could change out the light bulb and go for those that can be dimmable or adjustable. Nowadays, there are a lot of smart bulbs. That will be a very quick way for you to resolve that. Oh, thank you, Teresa, for your kind words, and Jamie. Wow, everybody's saying so much thank you. Okay, thank you. Oh, no more question already. Okay, so like, okay, I think Perlene said the master bedroom has one small window at the right side of the room. How can I cover that instead of curtains? So if you have a very small window and it's quite petite in size, you might want to put a piece of artwork if you're not using it. That kind of hides that window and it looks quite beautiful, like a gallery wall. But if truly you were to have that window there and you still want to do a window treatment, maybe a blind is better rather than a curtain. Oh, you guys are so sweet. Okay, Stacy said, is it too boxy if I've already got a large rectangular artwork on the wall and I want to put a TV console against that wall as well? It shouldn't be a problem. So the curved lines can come in through your cushions, your lights, and also through, yeah, your coffee table, even the tray that you buy as well. Okay, guys, thank you so much for staying with me and asking me all these questions. I really hope that I managed to answer some of them for you guys and that today's design mistake has also kind of given you a bit of insight to that. So I just wanted to share that basically my online course is back. And so if you are keen on learning how to decorate your home space, style your home space, and you can kind of follow me through in the next couple of weeks where I would have 5 really amazing expert speakers. So I think the very first one is Esther, who is actually going to guide us on how we can do some tidying up, maybe thinking about how we can coordinate like your lifestyle with storage, planning. And I really am very excited about the other speakers where we'll talk about handles, we'll talk about wall treatments, we will talk about how to customize furniture, which I think is a very big one because a lot of people nowadays, I feel like they want something more interesting rather than just a store-bought item. And I'm very, very happy and humbled that, Joanna from Loom and Stone is going to share all about rugs with us. So these are just a little quick run through on what each of the modules will carry in my website. I've also shared that. And so today is the very last day to enjoy the early bird. So next year, I'm hoping to launch the course again with some extra new videos. And so that's why this year is the last time that the course is going to be offered at this price. So I really hope you guys, if you're interested to join me, please just sign up. Thank you so much, guys. You have a wonderful weekend and a very good evening. Take care. Bye-bye.